Hello friends, welcome to my channel Go Digit. As promised last week, so in this video we will gonna use the Rapid API, and in this Rapid API we will use one of the translation API available, which is this NLP translation, and we will use this, and by using it we will send something to this API and receive something. Okay, and that something is text. So if you have not used this Rapid API, then I suggest you to please go ahead, create your account here and subscribe to this NLP translation API. Okay, once you subscribe to this API, you will be presented with this screen, and as we can see here, it has these three options available. Like for example, we can use the method get to translate anything, to translate the text. We can use the post method also using the translate. Also we can use the post method, and using the post method we can send the JSON data to this API. Okay, so because this is our first video over where we are using this one of the public REST API and use the translation feature of this API, so we will you go ahead with this get translate function. Okay, so when you select this, you will find that it has this definition that it takes these two parameters as header parameters. We know that header parameter is nothing but the add-on information which you send to the public API, so that this API would understand that what exactly you want and who are you. Okay, so because I have created an account here, this Rapid API provided me one of the key and one of the host. Okay, so we need to provide these two fields as the header, and then it also takes these two required parameters. Okay, we know about the get method, that whenever we use the get method, we pass the parameters of our like what it requires in the URL section only. Okay, so that is why it has provided us that we need to use these two parameter. The first parameter is text, which takes any text which you want, and two means that in which language code you want your translation. Okay, and here we are using ES. Okay, ES is Spanish. Okay, so now these are the optional parameters. Like optional parameter is which is from, that from means from English language, and it is very much optional, so we don't need to provide or we don't need to use the optional parameter as which is from in our case. Okay, so now our next thing is that we will use the Visual Studio Code and create a code unit to translate what exactly we want. Okay, so before that, I just want to show you the Business Central, and here what I already did is that I created one table and the page which names as auto translate list. Okay, so for example, as you can see, I have already tested it before, and what we will today learn is that, let's say if I open this, so we need to input the number, and as soon as we provide an text here, this original text here, we will pass this original text as the required parameter in my URL. Okay, and when I pass this, it calls the API, gets this translation of gets the translation of this hello world, and provided me the translated text. So once I get the translated text, I pass that text to this table. Okay, So this is what we will perform here, that how I achieved all this. Okay, so let's begin with Visual Studio Code. And as you can see, I have this project with me where I have created the table of auto translation. Then I created a page of auto translation. Then I created a card page of this auto translation. Along with that, I created the sales and extension of the sales and receivable setup, where I added the keys, where I added actually the header parameters. So if you see here, so these are the header parameters. So I, rather than I pass it manually in my code, I created two fields in my sales and receivable setup as authentication key and the host key, and already passed that information in my setup, so that we don't need to input manually these information, but call it using this sales and receivable setup table. Okay, so next thing is to use all these features. So let's go to your table first. And as I told you, that our requirement is that we want that as soon as we validate our original text, it should pass that original text to the where, to the rapid API. Okay, so let's this is our code unit. Here we will create my code unit as 50130. Okay, and let's create it as translate API, and create one procedure here, and name your procedure as call API. Okay, so it's time to call this function from my on validate trigger. For this, I will create one variable of my code unit, translate API. Okay, and here let's call that function call API. All right, now the thing is that I need to pass my this information to this function, so that it automatically gets called or passed with the URL. And once I receive the result from the API, that result should get stored here. Okay, so what I can do, I can pass this text as original text and translated text. All right, now go back to your code unit and create the two parameters here. One is that input value, okay, and the output value is the result which we will get. Okay, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that what type of parameter is this, and then output will also be of text type. Okay, so now, because in the past videos we have already learned that what are the available data types in the AL language to call an API. Okay, so let's initialize those data types or those variable here. So first is HTTP client. Okay, second is response, HTTP response message. Okay, third one is request, HTTP request message. Okay, and we also know that we need to provide the, or we need to pass the URL. So let's create a variable of text which will, where we will pass the URL. Okay, So this is my URL. We need one variable where we will store my results. So that will be of text type. Okay. And also we know that we need header also. So we need to pass the header parameters in my get method. So along with my get method. So for that, let's create one variable of HTTP header. Also, as we know that our header information is available in sales and receivable setup. So let's create that variable too. Now we are ready enough to start writing our code. So let's begin with that. So the first thing is that we need to call client. There is some problem in it. It is not suggesting me. Let me type again. Header client. Let me download the symbol. Okay, symbols are downloaded and no problem in it. So it's why it is not suggesting, like we have made any mistake in initializing our variables. Let's type it again. Client dot default request headers. Okay, and here we need to, okay, so this is the first thing, that we need to get the default request header with the request which we are sending to the API. Okay, so we store that in my header or HTTP header variable. Okay, now next step is that header dot add, and let's press control space, let's press control shift space, sorry, and it takes two parameters. The first one is name and the second one is the value. Okay, so the name is, if we uh, go back to the rapid API, so we can copy the name from here, that the first or name or the first name of the header is X rapid API key. Okay, so let's paste it here, and we know that the value of this field is, we can get from here. All right, and now header.add. Now head back to your API again, copy this name or the caption of this second header parameter and paste it here. Now the second value we can get from this field of sales and receivable setup. So guys, as you have seen that for adding the header information, I just copy the name or the same caption which is available in your API. So it is very much important that whenever you are working with any of the REST public APIs, you must have to check the complete definition of that API, so that you should check what are the header parameters it require, what are the required parameters which you can pass along with your URL. So you have to watch everything, then only you will be successfully connect to that API, otherwise you will always receive an error. Okay, so these are the two header parameters which we need to add here. So we already did that. Now we need to pass the URL information. So for that, let's go back again to the to this API, and here what we can see, we can go to the code snippet part, and here is my URL. So I copy that, okay, and let's go back again here and paste it. Okay, paste it here like this. All right. Now I'm very much done with this. So let's do or write another code where we will okay, let me type this one here, and I think now it will suggest me. Still not suggesting me. Okay, so let me type again here request, and request dot set request URI. Okay, so pass the URL. Okay, so this is the standard URL which I have passed in this function. But as you know, if I check my definition of the API, we can easily see that it takes these two parameters also, which we have to pass along with the URL, because we are working with the get method. So the thing is that how can we pass this information in my URL? So the standard way of passing the parameters in the URL is that first we should pass the complete URL, then to add the parameters in it, we need to add like this question mark, then the caption, which is standard one. So we know that the name of the first parameter is text. Okay, so we pass like this, text is equal to. Okay, so this is the very standard caption which we have to add as a parameter in my URL. So I added it in my URL definition only. Now we know that it takes the value which we pass in this text parameter. It is the dynamic value. Okay, it depends on what value user will input. Okay, so we know that we have to pass this input value. So what we can do, we can add this in my URL. All right, so this is the first information or the first parameter value I pass or I added in my URL. Okay, but now to add the second parameter in the URL, we need to first add the ampersand. Okay, so this is a very standard way of doing things. So to differentiate the two different parameters in the URL, we have to use the ampersand. Okay, now again write plus, and we know that the second parameter is TO. TO is the caption, and this and the last one is the value. So whatever value you will pass. In my case, I'm keeping it the standard one, so I'm not doing it dynamic. I'm not providing a dynamic value here. So what I'll do is I'll pass it as a standard text. If you want this value also dynamic, then also just like we did in the input value section, we can always do it like this. Okay, so what we can do to make it dynamic, do like this and then input value. Okay, you can do it like that, but in our case we will keep the standard this code which is showing in the example of that rapid API. So with this we are done with the setting up of our URL, and also we append the parameters in my URL which I want to pass, right? So that's it with it. Now just to know that what is the final URL which I am sending to the Rapid API. If you want to know about that, then we can call this function, and here, because it generates, or it gives the output in the text format, so let me create one variable output URL as text, and let's pass it here, output URL. Okay, so this is it. It is giving me an error. Okay, like this. Fine. Hope you have understood what we have done so far. Okay, what we have done so far is that we have created uh, the header definition and set the URL along with the parameters. All right, so this is the first thing which we have done. Now let me also write the message command so that we can view that what exactly the URL we are passing. Okay, so with this, now let's call the method, or let's set the method which we will use. So we know in our case it is get method. Okay, so with this we are very much done with the HTTP request message parameter or variable. Now we will use my client variable. So client dot send, because we will now send my request to the Rapid API. So it takes two parameters. The first one is request and the second one is response. Okay, got it? So now this function will actually send the request, whatever we have set in the above code, and now the output will get in the response variable. So it's time to play with the output. Okay, so first of all, just to check that what exactly the output we are getting from this Rapid API, so we can see that this is the kind of output which we will get. Okay, so just to show you that this is the output, so we can understand that this is the JSON type of output. The output, or we can say that the output is in the JSON format. Okay, so we have understood the concept of JSON in the previous videos. So from that we could understand that this complete result is one JSON object. Okay, but this one is the another JSON object which is the part of this parent JSON object. So in this result we have two JSON object. First one is this, which is a child JSON, and this is the main, or we can call it a parent JSON object. And by checking it out we can easily understood that my output is available in this name, which is ES. Okay, so we have to check the value of, or the result using this ES name available under the translated text. Okay, so let's begin with it. Go back to your Visual Studio Code, and now the first thing is that we will need to check my response. So if response is successful, then only do the following. Okay, otherwise else, and rather than error we can call it like this %2, and we know we can use these functions of response to get the definition of the error so that we can check it out. Okay, now we know that if the result is successful, so here this section we must have to use to play with the output. So we know that we are getting the output in the format of JSON. So let's create JSON objects, and we know that we have two JSON objects available in the result. So that's why I'm creating the two JSON objects. Okay, and because we have to uh, use these two names inside the JSON objects, and to get the output of to get the result. So for that we need to add two JSON token variables. Okay, the first JSON token variable will get this complete result, and the second JSON variable will get this JSON token variable will get the value of this parameter. Okay, so let's create two JSON token variable. Okay, so let's first thing is that get the content of the response. Okay, so whatever the output we are getting in the response, just copy the content of that response in one text variable. So we have done it like this. We are copying the content of my response in the result. Okay, now let's use your JSON object and use this function read from, and it takes either the string or the in stream. So we know that my result is in this variable, so I can call it like this. So that's it. Now my complete result, like my this complete result we have stored in the JSON object variable. Now we know that we want to get the value available in the ES name, but for ES, because we know that this ES is a part of the translated text, and translated text is a part of this complete output. So what we can do is that copy this and pass it here, and pass whatever the result of this translated text, or whatever the value available in the translated text in the JSON token variable. So like this. So now what this code means, that we are passing the values, or we are passing the result of this translated text in the JSON token. So with this mean that the JSON token variable will now have this value. All right. So like this. So the next thing is, so we need to use JSON token, and we need to pass this complete JSON token result in where? In another text. Okay, because what we know is that it takes either the text variable or the outstream variable. All right, so what I can do here is that new result. All right, so pass this here as new result. Now again, because we already have the information of the complete result as a JSON object, but the child JSON object, or the like this data, because it is also in the JSON format, so we will now call this new JSON object, and let's read the new result in this new JSON object. Okay, so this means that my new JSON object will have only this much. Okay, so now I know that my ES value, or the output which is stored in the ES name, is a part of this new JSON object. All right, so what we can do is that we can use uh, new JSON object dot get, and here we will pass the ES. Okay, because we want the value of the ES, so pass the ES, because ES is now the part of the new JSON object, and here we will pass the new JSON token. All right, now the value available in the ES is available in my new JSON token. So that's it. Now I can directly pass the result in my table field, and I know the parameter which I added here is my table field, so I can directly call this output value, output val variable here, and to get the value we can use this one, because we know it's a text type. So that's it. We have now successfully transferred the value available in the ES name, or in the ES property, to my table field. Okay, so this is all what we have to use, or what we have to write in order to use the get method and get the output by calling an API. So first we pass the header information, then we set the URL, and in the URL only we added our parameters, like in whatever format your API supports, and then we are sending the request, and then we are checking that if the response is successful, then read the result, then after reading the result, pass the result in the JSON object format, and then from the JSON object format we are transferring the values, or transferring the result in the JSON token, and from the JSON token we can directly read the value and pass it to my table fields. Okay, so this is it. Now build your project, and like to do it from scratch, what I can do is that I open my same page and delete the existing records. So select this and delete, select this and delete. Okay, so close this, and now deploy this project. So let's run your page, auto translate list, click on new, provide the primary key, and now let's say if I pass let's say never give up. So this is an English language. Okay, and we are calling it the original text. So just press enter and see, this is my URL which I'm passing or which I'm sending to the Rapid API. So this is the standard URL, and now these are my parameters. So the first parameter is text, and the first parameter which is text is having the value whatever user input in the original text field. So in our case it is never gave up, and then the second parameter is separated by ampersand, and which is fixed as to2 is equal to es. Okay, and check the result and see, this is the result which we are getting in the translated text. Okay, just to check it further, let's enter some more input here. Let's say hello world, and this time my parameters in the URL is like text is equals to hello world. So this is the dynamic, whatever user will input in the original text. Click OK, and now we are having the translated text with us. Okay, so this is how we can test it like anything. We can input any text in any language and get the output in the translated text in any of the requested format, whatever we want. The only thing is that we must have to consider the definition of your translation API in a very scrutinized manner, so that you could understand each and everything that how your API actually works. So pass your complete header parameters, your complete required parameters in the URL, and then you can get the output in your format. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, it is written now. Okay, just okay, this was the old one, this is the new one. Okay, so that's all which I want to cover up in this today's video. So I hope you guys have understood now at least the basic concept of how to uh, play with the APIs, which are public APIs available in various platforms. You could use it. It is not about only the Rapid API, but in any platform you can use any platform, and using such code you can easily get your work done. Okay, so with this note, I just want to finish my video here. Thank you for watching the video. If you like this video, then I just request you to please hit the like button, and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.